Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Gyro. Today we're talking about a Deadeye Ranger. Most basic, most simple build that I believe, I've discovered it for myself recently, and I believe that it is probably the best, from what I've seen in Path of Exile, the best map clearer out there. If you have limited amount of time and attention span and all you want to hear is just really what you need to know, there is a POB Path of Building link to this build in the description below. And please fast forward to the section that says pros and cons. I would like to tell you specifically what you need to know about this build. And if you watch one bit of this video, that might as well be it. I will talk to you about the playstyle naturally, and I will talk to you about the key skills, which also, spoiler alert, gonna be pretty basic. We will talk inevitably about passive skill tree, exactly how to build this, and like I already said, POB Path of Building link is in the description below for you to see the vector that I give you. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, but you like casual attitude, unpretentious guides that are directed specifically at beginners of Path of Exile, not experts, beginners, then please hit the like button, please subscribe to the channel for more similar guides that are being released currently, about one guide a week. So the gameplay is very satisfying, I would have to say. It's very easy to start killing groups, large groups of mobs and clear maps very fast on a ranger, even when you are only just starting to level. You will notice, especially if you leveled any melee characters before in Path of Exile, the difference between the speed of clear that a ranger offers you and any of your melee characters of the past is drastic, is just insane. You will rely very heavily on the split arrow skill, which is basically a multi-shot kind of thing. So a split arrow is going to hit all targets that are approaching you, have huge range, and yeah, and basically that's how you'll clear full maps very easily. I genuinely recommend that you start wrapping your head around two concepts. You will need one skill that is going to be an AoE skill, it's going to be hitting large areas, yeah, and one skill that's going to be a little more single target focused, that's going to be hitting one particular target. For this very basic build vector for beginners, I've used Rain of Arrows. Rain of Arrows is not something that you get during the first couple of levels, but you get it pretty early on. I'd say, I can't remember exactly the moment, but I'd say by level 12 you should get Rain of Arrows. And this whole build is revolving around that. The supplementary damage component to what this build is doing is bleed. It's very simple, we are only basing this build on physical. It's a physical damage boosting build. We are increasing in our passive skill tree, in all of the choices that we make, we're increasing the physical damage component, projectile speed and projectile damage. That is what we're kind of focusing on straight away. Gear, gems and skills that I'm using here, let's take a look at it together. I am using tabula rasa. The more links, the more sockets, the merrier, obviously. So in this particular case, we're very heavily relying on Rain of Arrows, as I already said. Rain of Arrows, as the footage shows in the background, is firing multiple arrows into the air, and it kills everyone essentially. It is a bit self-guiding, it starts moving, so the Rain of Arrows starts moving in the direction that you shot it in. It's kind of semi-smart, I would call it a semi-smart skill. And if you watched my other videos, I kind of always lean towards something that's simple. I want something that kills everyone, and I don't need to worry too much about exactly how it happens. So Rain of Arrows is fantastic, I love it. It's supported by Mirage Archer. Mirage Archer is actually a very cool skill. Another support gem here is Vicious Projectiles. We are increasing massively in this case, increasing the amount of damage our projectiles do. It is really kind of self-explanatory over here, very important. Chance to bleed support. This is a bleed build, so this is a physical damage build, but we would like all these arrows make our enemies bleed, and even if direct damage is not going to kill them, bleed is going to kill them. That is our intention here. Onslaught support, there is a 10% chance to get onslaught, which is for 3 seconds when you hit a unique enemy. Then we will have specific damage bonus to inflicting further damage. Inspiration support, it basically reduces the mana cost of the skill associated with it, which is fantastic, right? So this is really good. And I can basically pour everything, like cover everything with the Rain of Arrows, which is fantastic. Now over here we have a Burning Arrow. Burning Arrow is given to you, I think it's like a first skill that you get, first gem that you get. From my observations, it looks like Burning Arrow on single targets works better than just me continuing to rely on Rain of Arrows. But you will see that I'm being a bit casual / lazy. I sometimes simply continue pouring everything with Rain of Arrows and just running around the target, even if it's a single target. That's what I often do. Burning Arrow in this case is well, supported, but not intentionally supported. It's not a very optimized layout, obviously, by Molten Shell. Molten Shell will save you more than once. Again, I'm referring to pros and cons of this build section, where we will talk specifically about the cons. Molten Shell is going to help you. Decoy Totem is another lifesaver. Having an ability to dash is a life-saving thing and an absolute requirement. It's an absolute requirement for this build. If for other builds that I talked to you about, maybe teleport, look, in some tight spots you need it, etc. In Ultimatum trials of the Trial Master encounters in 3.14, you need it. But in other places maybe it's optional. Here it's a lifesaver. You need to use it. You absolutely need to use it. And the playstyle that I'm referring to, that you saw already on the screen, is that you need to maintain maximum distance from your enemies. As soon as you see shadows appearing from the edges of the screen approaching you, you shoot Rain of Arrows and you dash backward. And you dash backward, away from the enemies. Speed, due to insane amount of dexterity that this build will have. You will be able to maintain speed and literally just run around like a crazy person. But that, if you stop, if you don't dash, if you don't run, chances are you're dying, my friend. That is what I would like you to remember from this section of this video. You're obviously a ranger, and we will be investing our efforts and our points into increasing attack speed and projectile damage, as I already said to you. You go through inevitable nodes here, increasing projectile speed, increasing your dexterity, and increasing attack speed. You go right, if I can point you in the right direction. Take a look at the POB at the Path of Building link in the description below. I already said it multiple times, but can't say it enough. You first go right. Your primary goal is to get all these nodes and get to this vertical highway over here and tremendously boost your damage with bows, because you'll be using a bow. One cluster jewel over here. I had a decent jewel here to put in, plus 20 to dexterity and elemental resistances is good. I also deviated then later over here to increase attack damage massively and increase movement speed, dexterity and intelligence. I then took some defensives to regenerate life per second and to avoid being stunned. Then I went down here, and this area kept me busy for quite some time, and it will keep you busy for quite some time. Here your goal, once again, keep increasing your damage with bows, and in case you need to self-guide or self-propel this build, as I always encourage my people to do, please keep in mind that there is a search bar over here at the top, and you can just type in bow, and it starts flashing, slightly flashing, all the various nodes that have anything to do with increase to bow damage. Or you could replace that and do a more broader search, projectile. So you can see that I didn't take some nodes that have something to do with projectiles over here, for example, but I've taken quite a lot, and there is a certain purpose to my intention of how I wanted to grow this build. So that is what I want to say to you. So first you deal with this right section, then you go down here, you deal with this. So it is a literal path. You're progressing over here with this path. Ascendancy is a labyrinth. You unlock the labyrinth at first when you level your first character, and then once you unlock the labyrinth, and once you have passed the Ascendancy trial at 33, then at 55, then further and further, each time you pass through the labyrinth, and it gets harder, each time you pass you get 2 points for this separate special expandable area of your passive skill tree. Alright, so we will not spend too much time on the other options here. Yeah, I picked Deadeye because I rely on Mirage Archers. I like to have Mirage Archer boosted, and I am continue to boost projectile speed and duration of my Mirage Archer support. That's how I play, and I quite like it. I like running around with an imaginary friend, okay? And over here it's an interesting occupying forces, an interesting node, which basically detaches your imaginary friend from yourself and there could be, as long as you move, as long as you don't try to summon them with the skill that you're using on one spot, because they won't be summoned then. So as this says, cannot summon Mirage Archers while you're next to your Mirage Archers, so you need to move basically. Shoot a little bit, Mirage Archer spawns, dash, shoot a little bit, another Mirage Archer spawns, shoot a little bit. That's how you move, yeah. So this is what I'm playing, and obvious direction is to continue increasing my projectiles and continue moving this way. That's where I'm intending to go with this build, if and when I come back to it from whatever the other next build that I'm preparing right now for you, my friends, and that I'm having a lot of fun with as well. Link is in the description below for the POB. Your feedback is always welcome. Never pretend to be an expert, but that's how I play, and I have a lot of fun with it. Every build that I cover has some pros and cons, naturally, but this one is very, very particular. The massive pro, and why I'm covering this build, why I think it's an awesome thing deserving your attention, is just how fun it is and how absolutely mind-bogglingly amazing it is at clearing maps, clearing trash, so to speak, yeah? Damage is decent too, so yellows, special kind of monsters, the blue monsters as well, they die pretty easily, if not from one volley, from one barrage, then from, you know, a couple. But at the same time, this build is easy to pick up, very easy to pick up, it's very satisfying, it gives you this range, you kill everything at range, everything dies, you're like, oh my god, this is just too easy. Yeah, it looks too easy, it gets harder, okay? And that is the con, we get to the cons. In confined spaces, on boss arenas, in smaller areas where there is nowhere for you to run, where you cannot gain distance, where you can only do so much dashing, and where AoE bosses do a lot of AoE damage, where explosions are everywhere, where there is just nowhere for you to hide. You are really skinny and really don't have enough defenses. Even with Life Leech, even with some elemental resistances that I invest into in my build, I was not able to, at least by roughly level 60, I was not able to reach any reasonable survivability. Survivability is at the bottom, like if there is a scale somewhere for my builds that I covered. Some other classes also, you know, they are not tanks, like my witches, they are not tanks. But this one, waft of wind and it dies, okay? Waft of wind and it dies. I might be exaggerating a tiny bit, but I would rather prepare you, and then you'd be positively surprised than negatively surprised. So please understand that with fun comes kind of demands, come certain demands. So with all this fun, that is not arguable, that is definitely there. I think it's a worthy build for you to try. But you will die very easily, and you'll die multiple times from one-shots from bosses on those tiny arenas. You will be frustrated, inevitably, until your build is optimized, until you get better gear, until you're better than me, which I very much wish for you to become and know that you will be. But there will be situations like Maligaro's arena, like one of those bosses, right? Tiny space, a lot of AoE. Best thing you can do is come in, shoot a couple of shots, because you know that you will die in 2 seconds, okay? Start relying heavily on those armors, on Molten Shell, like I'm doing on Molten Shell. Start relying on your Decoy Totem. Decoy Totem you need to rely on practically all the time. You throw a Decoy Totem, especially if you get surrounded by enemies, and then you continue barraging them with arrows. It works fine. It works fine. You beat bosses and stuff. But prepare to die. You clear maps so fast with this build. Well, relatively fast compared to, for example, summoner builds. You clear them so fast that you can afford to die a few times here and there. I hope you enjoyed this video for what it's worth. I hope you will try this build. I hope you will let me know in the comments down below if this is your playstyle, if you really enjoy pelting everything with arrows, covering the sky with arrows and letting the enemies fight in the shade. Thanks very much for tuning in today. More videos, more guides, more builds like this are coming to you, because there is a bunch of good ones that I'm working on right now, just for my own fun and for your enjoyment as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. You're most welcome in our casual club. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye bye for now.